When we think of Harrison Ford, it's hard not to imagine the iconic imagery of him gripping a whip as Indiana Jones or navigating the stars as Han Solo. His roles have immortalized him in cinematic history as a man of adventure and courage. Yet, beyond the characters he's portrayed, Ford's real-life actions paint a picture of a man dedicated to something far deeper and more profound than any blockbuster narrative. He has not only captured the hearts of moviegoers but has also invested a significant part of his life in humanitarian causes, particularly in advocating for the freedom of Tibet. Isn't it remarkable that a figure so entwined with pop culture has quietly become one of the strongest voices for the Tibetan people? But this advocacy is not just about fame or political grandstanding. It stems from Ford's deep respect for the Tibetan people, their rich spiritual traditions, and their compassionate leader, the Dalai Lama. Tibet, a place many of us may never have visited, holds a unique place in the world's conscience, a region at the intersection of geopolitical conflict, cultural preservation, and spiritual wisdom. Ford's passion for Tibet's plight is emblematic of a life that seeks not just adventure but meaning. How many of us can say that we use our positions, our voices, and our influence for something greater than ourselves? Let's take a journey into Harrison Ford's life as an advocate for Tibet. And along the way, we'll explore the philosophical depths of his commitment, the cultural significance of Tibet's struggle, and how his actions resonate with broader humanistic ideals. Subscribe today and be part of the global voice for Tibetan freedom. Together, we can amplify the message of peace and human rights, the call to justice. Harrison Ford's awakening to the Tibetan cause. Many people think of activism as something that suddenly happens, a light bulb moment that makes one leap into action. But for Ford, his journey into advocacy was a gradual process. Like any hero's journey, it started with curiosity, grew into understanding, and eventually flourished into action. Ford's relationship with Tibet and its people did not emerge from a vacuum. His activism is rooted in his broader sense of responsibility as a global citizen. He has long been involved in causes related to environmental preservation and indigenous rights. In fact, Ford has often spoken about how these causes are interlinked, how the health of the planet, the well-being of indigenous cultures, and the political freedom of oppressed peoples are all connected. In an age where it is easy to be swept up in the immediacy of personal gain, Ford's shift from Hollywood icon to human rights advocate is refreshing. What was it, we might wonder, that sparked this transformation? Perhaps it was Ford's own reflective nature, a man who has spent decades in front of the camera but has always seemed more comfortable in the solitude of the outdoors. Or perhaps it was his personal encounters with the Dalai Lama that truly awakened him to the plight of Tibet. Whatever the catalyst, Ford's activism stands as a beacon for the possibility of a more mindful, purposeful existence. The Dalai Lama, a figure of compassion and resistance, at the heart of Ford's commitment to Tibet is his deep respect for the Dalai Lama. This respect is not merely admiration from afar but the result of a personal bond that has grown over time. Imagine meeting a man who has lost his homeland, who has seen his people suffer unimaginable hardships, yet remains a symbol of peace and nonviolence. How could one not be moved? Tenzin Gyatso, the 14th Dalai Lama, is more than just the spiritual leader of Tibetan Buddhism. He is a global icon for peace, compassion, and human rights. Since his exile from Tibet in 1959 following the Chinese occupation, the Dalai Lama has become a wandering sage, spreading messages of kindness, compassion, and the need for inner peace to overcome outer challenges. For someone like Ford, who values authenticity and sincerity, it's easy to see why he would be drawn to the Dalai Lama's way of being. Ford has often spoken about how the Dalai Lama's teachings resonate with him on a personal level. In a world driven by conflict, greed, and power, the Dalai Lama's approach to Tibet's political situation has been nothing short of revolutionary. Rather than advocating for violent rebellion or bitter retaliation, he has called for a middle-way approach. This method, which seeks genuine autonomy for Tibet while still recognizing Chinese sovereignty, emphasizes dialogue, mutual understanding, and nonviolence. Can you imagine maintaining such a philosophy of peace when your country's very identity is at stake? It's a question that challenges the very core of our understanding of justice and resistance. For Ford, this approach isn't just an admirable strategy, it's a philosophy of life. The Dalai Lama's teachings on compassion, interdependence, and the importance of preserving one's culture have deeply influenced Ford's activism. But more than anything, it's the Dalai Lama's unwavering commitment to nonviolence, even in the face of profound injustice, that has most touched Ford. In many ways, the Dalai Lama's philosophy mirrors Ford's own environmental and humanitarian advocacy, which emphasizes sustainability, preservation, and a deep respect for all forms of life. Harrison Ford and the Congressional Gold Medal Ceremony, a moment of profound advocacy. In 2007, one of the most public displays of Harrison Ford's advocacy for Tibet came when he was a key speaker at the Congressional Gold Medal Ceremony, where the Dalai Lama was awarded the highest civilian honor in the United States. This event wasn't just a symbolic moment. It was a powerful statement about the global importance of the Tibetan cause. Ford's speech at the ceremony was heartfelt and profound. He praised the Dalai Lama for his lifelong commitment to promoting peace, compassion, and the survival of Tibetan culture, even in the face of immense pressure and adversity. Ford spoke not just as an actor or a public figure, but as someone who had been deeply moved by the Dalai Lama's example. "I'm humbled to stand here," Ford said during his speech, "next to a man who embodies what it means to live with compassion and wisdom in a world that so often seems to have neither." Ford's words were not just about admiration, they were a call to action. He emphasized the need for the world to recognize the importance of Tibetan culture and to support the Dalai Lama's peaceful struggle for autonomy. Can we, in our own lives, find the courage to stand up for what's right, even when it's not popular or easy? This ceremony marked a turning point in Ford's public advocacy for Tibet. It was no longer just about supporting the cause from behind the scenes, it was about becoming a visible and vocal ally. Ford's participation in this event helped to bring greater global attention to the Tibetan cause and reinforced his commitment to using his platform for good, fame and activism. Harrison Ford's unique role in the Tibetan struggle, being a globally recognized actor, gives Harrison Ford a unique platform. One that he has chosen to use for causes that matter deeply to him. But fame, as we know, can be a double-edged sword. While it can amplify a message, it can also bring scrutiny and criticism. For Ford, however, the cause of Tibetan freedom and cultural preservation has been worth the risk. Ford has used his fame in ways that go beyond the typical celebrity endorsements of causes. His involvement with organizations like the International Campaign for Tibet, ICT, and his participation in the Tibet House Benefit Concert in New York City demonstrate his commitment to not just lending his name, but actively engaging with the issue. This is no casual advocacy, it's a deeply personal mission. The Tibet House Benefit Concert is an annual event that brings together artists, musicians, and advocates from around the world to raise funds for the preservation of Tibetan culture. Ford's participation in this event is a testament to his belief in the importance of cultural preservation. Think about the significance of culture in our lives, how it shapes our identities, our values, and our sense of belonging. Now imagine that culture being systematically erased. What would we be without it? This is the existential threat Tibet faces, and Ford understands that preserving Tibetan culture is about more than just keeping traditions alive, it's about maintaining a way of being that is inextricably linked to compassion, mindfulness, and peace. Ford's participation in such events does more than just generate media attention, it helps keep the Tibetan cause in the global consciousness. By using his platform to amplify the voices of those who are often silenced, Ford has played a crucial role in keeping the Tibetan issue alive in the international arena. Tibetan culture under threat, the struggle for preservation. One of the most pressing issues facing Tibet today is the systematic erosion of its culture under Chinese rule. The Chinese government has imposed strict controls on religious practices, language, and education in Tibet, often forcing Tibetans to adopt Chinese customs at the expense of their own cultural identity. This kind of cultural assimilation is a form of oppression that goes beyond the political, it strikes at the very heart of who people are. Harrison Ford has been vocal about the importance of preserving Tibetan culture, particularly its language, religious practices, and spiritual traditions. For Ford, the loss of Tibetan culture would be a loss not just for Tibet, but for the world. Tibetan Buddhism, with its teachings on compassion, mindfulness, and the interconnectedness of all beings, offers unique spiritual insights that are desperately needed in today's world. In many ways, Ford's advocacy for Tibetan cultural preservation is an extension of his environmental activism. He understands that just as ecosystems are delicate and require protection, so too do cultural systems. The rapid industrialization and exploitation of natural resources in Tibet by the Chinese government threaten not only the environment but also the traditional livelihoods and spiritual practices of Tibetan nomads and farmers. Ford has spoken out about the need to protect Tibet's natural landscapes and ensure that Tibetan communities can continue their sustainable ways of living in harmony with nature. Isn't it remarkable how interconnected everything is? The fight to preserve Tibetan culture is also a fight to preserve its environment, its spiritual practices, and its way of life. It's a reminder that we are all part of a larger system, and when one part is threatened, the whole system suffers. A philosophical reflection. What does it mean to be free? As we reflect on Harrison Ford's activism for Tibetan freedom, it's important to ask ourselves, what does it mean to be free? For Tibet, freedom is not just about political autonomy, it's about the right to preserve one's culture, practice one's religion, and live in accordance with one's values. This kind of freedom is not just a political issue, it's a deeply philosophical one. Freedom, in its truest sense, is about the ability to live authentically, to be who you are without fear of oppression or assimilation. For the Tibetan people, this means being able to practice their religion, speak their language, and maintain their cultural traditions without interference. But under Chinese rule, these freedoms have been systematically eroded. Tibetans are forced to adopt Chinese customs, their religious sites have been destroyed, and their calls for autonomy are met with harsh repression. Harrison Ford's advocacy for Tibetan freedom is rooted in a belief that freedom is not just a political right but a spiritual one. The Dalai Lama has often spoken about the importance of inner freedom, freedom from anger, hatred, and greed. For Tibet, the struggle for political freedom is also a struggle for inner freedom. A freedom that allows individuals to live in accordance with their deepest values and beliefs. As we consider Ford's activism, it's worth asking ourselves, what does freedom mean to us? How can we, in our own lives, work to protect the freedoms of others, not just politically but spiritually and culturally? Ford's commitment to Tibet reminds us that freedom is not just something to be fought for in the halls of government, it's something to be nurtured in our hearts and in the way we treat others. Criticizing Chinese policies, the courage to speak out. One of the most courageous aspects of Harrison Ford's advocacy for Tibet is his willingness to speak out against Chinese policies. Despite the potential risks to his career, the Chinese government has long been known for its harsh treatment of those who criticize its policies, particularly when it comes to Tibet. Yet, Ford has not hesitated to condemn China's oppressive actions in the region. Ford's criticisms of China have not gone unnoticed. In 1995, his then-wife, screenwriter Melissa Matheson, co-wrote the screenplay for the film Kundan, which depicted the life of the Dalai Lama and the Chinese invasion of Tibet. Directed by Martin Scorsese, the film was a powerful and controversial portrayal of Tibet's struggle for freedom. While the film received critical acclaim, it was banned in China, and Scorsese, along with key members of the production, including Ford and Matheson, were blacklisted by the Chinese government. Despite this, Ford has continued to speak out about the human rights abuses in Tibet. He has openly criticized China's harsh treatment of Tibetan monks, the destruction of Tibetan religious sites, and the forced assimilation policies that seek to erase Tibetan identity. Ford has called on the international community to take a firmer stance against China's actions and to support the Dalai Lama's middle way approach, which seeks genuine autonomy for Tibet within the framework of Chinese sovereignty. This willingness to speak truth to power, even when it comes at a personal cost, is a testament to Ford's deep commitment to justice. In a world where silence can often be the easier path, Ford has chosen to use his platform to speak out for those who cannot. His activism reminds us that true courage is not just about taking action, it's about standing up for what's right, even when it's difficult or unpopular. A voice in the global movement for Tibetan freedom, Harrison Ford's advocacy for Tibet is part of a larger global movement that seeks to protect Tibetan culture, promote human rights, and secure autonomy for the Tibetan people. Alongside other notable figures such as Richard Gere, Ford has become a key figure in raising awareness about Tibet's plight and contributing to the growing international pressure on China to address its policies in the region. Ford's involvement in this movement is not just about lending his name to a cause, it's about actively participating in the fight for justice. He has consistently used his platform to engage with policymakers, activists, and the public, whether through attending fundraising events, speaking at public forums, or working with organizations like ICT. His efforts have helped bring increased visibility to the Tibetan cause and have inspired others to take action. But Ford's advocacy goes beyond the political, it's also deeply spiritual. His relationship with the Dalai Lama and his commitment to preserving Tibetan culture reflect a broader understanding of what it means to be human. In many ways, Ford's activism is about more than just Tibet, it's about the universal struggle for freedom, compassion, and dignity. As we consider Ford's role in the global movement for Tibetan freedom, it's worth asking ourselves, how can we, in our own lives, contribute to the fight for justice? Whether it's through supporting human rights organizations, raising awareness about important issues, or simply treating others with kindness and compassion, we all have the power to make a difference. Conclusion: a hero in more ways than one, Harrison Ford may be known for his daring roles on screen, but his real-life heroism is even more compelling. His relationship with the Dalai Lama, his commitment to Tibetan freedom, and his advocacy for the preservation of Tibetan culture reveal a man driven by a deep sense of justice, compassion, and responsibility. Through his activism, Ford has helped bring global attention to the plight of Tibet, inspiring others to join the fight for freedom and cultural preservation. His efforts have shown that true heroism is not just about taking action, it's about standing up for what's right, even when it's difficult or unpopular. In a world where so many voices are lost in the noise, Ford stands out, clear, strong, and unwavering in its commitment to compassion, justice, and freedom. As we reflect on his journey, we are reminded that each of us has the power to make a difference. No matter who we are or where we come from. Isn't that what true heroism is all about?